Shia LaBeouf, the 39-year-old actor whose career has spanned from child star beginnings on Disney Channel's Even Stevens to blockbuster franchises such as Transformers, has found himself once again at the center of intense legal and public scrutiny following a dramatic and highly publicized series of events that began during the iconic Mardi Gras celebrations in New Orleans earlier this year. Known both for his critically acclaimed work on screen and his long-documented personal struggles, LaBeouf's life in 2026 has taken a tumultuous turn that has captured headlines and provoked widespread discussion about celebrity behavior, accountability, and the intersection of personal challenges with public obligations. The root of the latest controversy stems from an alleged altercation that occurred in the early morning hours of February 17 during the exuberant Mardi Gras festivities in New Orleans, a city known for its vibrant celebrations and large crowds. According to police reports and multiple news outlets, LaBeouf was at the Royal Street Inn and bar in the city's Faubourg Marigny, a neighborhood adjacent to the famed French Quarter, when he became involved in a confrontation with several individuals. The New Orleans Police Department responded to calls of a disturbance shortly after midnight, and law enforcement records indicate that LaBeouf was increasingly aggressive, leading bar staff to try to escort him out of the establishment. Once outside, authorities allege he struck at least two men with closed fists, including punching one individual repeatedly and later hitting another in the face, possibly dislocating his nose, before bystanders intervened. The police also contend that LaBeouf returned to the scene after initially leaving, further escalating the situation before officers arrived on site. LaBeouf was taken into custody and subsequently booked on 2 counts of simple battery for the alleged assault, charges that fall under misdemeanor offenses. Following his brief detention, he was initially released on his own recognizance, an uncommon outcome during the height of Mardi Gras celebrations when court operations are typically limited. Despite being freed without bail, law enforcement video and eyewitness accounts reportedly showed him later on Bourbon Street, another iconic location in New Orleans, reveling in the crowd and even posting the message "Free Me" to social media, an act that drew immediate commentary given the serious nature of the charges against him. The alleged incident also included disturbing allegations that LaBeouf had hurled homophobic slurs at the individuals he was accused of assaulting, remarks that not only heightened media attention but also sparked concern among community advocates and public safety officials. One of the alleged victims has identified as queer, and another was described as performing in drag at the time of the incident, leading some to argue that the behavior should prompt hate crime considerations under Louisiana state law. Advocates for LGBTQ+ rights and local community leaders emphasized that violence and derogatory speech against marginalized groups carry broader social implications, particularly when a high-profile celebrity is involved, and they have called for thorough accountability in the case. In the days following his arrest, the legal proceedings escalated rapidly. Initially released without bail, LaBeouf's status changed significantly when additional details, including the allegations of homophobic language and the severity of the physical confrontation, were incorporated into the court record. During a subsequent hearing on February 26, a judge presiding over the case, Judge Simone Levine of the Orleans Parish Criminal Court, expressed concern not only over the specifics of the alleged assault but also over LaBeouf's overall comportment and dedication to addressing his long-standing struggles with substance use. Levine imposed a $100,000 bond to ensure LaBeouf's continued appearance in court and mandated that he participate in substance abuse rehabilitation and weekly drug testing as part of the conditions of his release. These orders were not made lightly. The judge cited the actor's history with alcohol and expressed skepticism about whether he truly understood the seriousness of the incident and its implications. Levine also emphasized concerns for public safety, particularly pertaining to the LGBTQ+ community, noting that the alleged conduct could pose a danger to a group that has historically faced disproportionate risk and discrimination. The terms of LaBeouf's bail reflected a legal balancing act. On one hand, the court acknowledged that under the American justice system, defendants are generally presumed innocent until proven guilty. On the other, the seriousness of the alleged assault, combined with the purported use of hate-filled language, demanded a strict set of conditions to ensure compliance and mitigate further risk. In addition to bail and treatment requirements, LaBeouf was legally prohibited from contacting the alleged victims or returning to the bar where the incident occurred, reinforcing the court's attempt to both respect due process and protect public safety. Amid this legal turmoil, LaBeouf and his legal team faced additional challenges as they sought to manage not only the court's expectations but also the personal obligations that had led to an earlier request for travel approval. Prior to his arrest, LaBeouf had petitioned the court to allow him to travel abroad to Rome, Italy, in early March to attend and participate in his father's baptism, a request grounded in religious and familial commitment. However, during the February 26 hearing, Judge Levine denied this travel request. Levine cited concerns about LaBeouf's capacity to handle travel responsibly while facing ongoing legal obligations and substance abuse issues. The judge's denial was rooted in a fundamental judicial question. Could the defendant be trusted to uphold the conditions of his release and deal adequately with the pressures of international travel while under active legal supervision? At that stage of the proceedings, the court's lack of confidence in LaBeouf's ability to balance these responsibilities led to a firm refusal of his initial petition. The denial of the travel request generated considerable commentary, with some observers suggesting it was a necessary check on potentially reckless behavior, while others viewed it as an overreach that impeded a defendant's ability to attend an important family event. LaBeouf's attorney, Sarah Chervinsky, moved swiftly to address the court's concerns, returning with a refined travel application that included a detailed itinerary, specific accommodation arrangements, and assurances that LaBeouf would return to New Orleans in time for his next scheduled hearing on March 19. This second request was met with a different judicial reception. Magistrate Judge Peter Hamilton, sitting in an affiliated section of the same courthouse, granted LaBeouf's petition to travel to Rome. The approval allowed him to spend the week of March 1 to March 8 abroad to attend his father's baptism, a reversal that came just days after his initial request had been rejected. The critical difference in the subsequent ruling was the completeness of the travel documentation. By providing a full, structured itinerary and clarifying the purpose and logistics of the trip, LaBeouf's legal team successfully addressed the court's earlier concerns about uncertainty and risk. The magistrate's decision ultimately reflected the authorities' recognition of legitimate personal obligations within the bounds of continued legal supervision, balancing LaBeouf's need for familial engagement with the court's mandate to ensure compliance and public safety. The rapid shift from denial to approval of travel rights was a pivotal moment in the narrative, opening a broader conversation about how justice is administered when a defendant has both a high public profile and significant personal circumstances. Legal analysts noted that it is not unheard of for defendants to be granted permission to travel while on bail, provided they demonstrate solid plans and assurances of compliance, and that LaBeouf's case was not entirely unprecedented on those grounds. However, the optics of the reversal, coming so soon after an emotionally charged hearing in which the judge openly criticized his accountability, sparked debate over whether celebrity status played any role in the eventual decision. Critics argued that the approval might suggest unequal treatment, while defenders maintained that the legal process functioned as intended, responding to procedural completeness rather than personal favor. During this period, LaBeouf also made public statements reflecting on the incident and its fallout. In interviews and social media appearances, he offered perspectives attempting to explain the circumstances that had led to his arrest, clarifying that he did not believe he had a fundamental drinking problem but rather attributed his behavior to underlying issues related to anger and ego. He admitted that his actions were wrong and acknowledged that he needed to confront personal challenges, though his comments about the dynamics of the initial altercation, particularly involving remarks about discomfort around other patrons, drew criticism for their insensitivity and for reinforcing the seriousness of the alleged homophobic slurs. These comments, captured in part by outlets following his Channel 5 interview, underscored the complicated and often contradictory aspects of his public statements and self-assessment, complicating public perception of his willingness to accept full responsibility for the events that had unfolded. The broader context of this episode also intersects with LaBeouf's long history of legal and behavioral issues that have played out publicly over the last decade. Prior to the 2026 battery arrest, he had been involved in multiple incidents dating back to his youth and early career, including allegations of disorderly conduct, substance abuse problems, and civil lawsuits stemming from alleged abusive behavior toward former partners. These past controversies have shaped public perception of LaBeouf's personal journey, often framing him as a talented yet troubled figure struggling to find stability and accountability. Indeed, part of the ongoing discussion in media and legal circles has revolved around whether LaBeouf's pattern of behavior reflects deeper, unresolved issues requiring substantive intervention beyond court-mandated programs, and whether those interventions can occur within the constraints of his professional life, personal relationships, and public responsibilities. As of the most recent reports, LaBeouf remains free on bond and continues to face the misdemeanor battery charges stemming from the New Orleans incident. His next scheduled appearance in court is set for March 19, when prosecutors and defense attorneys will likely assess the progress of his compliance with the conditions of release, including participation in substance abuse treatment and drug testing. The legal proceedings are ongoing and the outcome of the case remains unresolved, with potential implications for both his personal life and professional endeavors. In the interim, public reaction to LaBeouf's situation has been varied and often polarized. Some supporters emphasize the importance of compassion, rehabilitation, and the possibility of personal growth, arguing that individuals facing challenges deserve sustained opportunities for recovery and reintegration. Others have been more critical, contending that the actor's conduct, particularly within the context of alleged homophobic language and physical assault, warrants firm accountability and should not be overshadowed by his celebrity. The debate underscores larger societal conversations about how we understand and respond to misconduct, especially when it involves public figures whose lives and actions are continually scrutinized by fans, critics, and the media at large. Regardless of the ultimate legal resolution, Shia LaBeouf's journey through this series of events represents a complex intersection of personal struggle, public accountability, and the justice system's ongoing effort to balance compassion with responsibility. As the case progresses, it will continue to test not only the legal framework applied to high-profile defendants but also the broader cultural and ethical conversations surrounding celebrity, behavior, and redemption in the modern era.